made this?
Songs get stuck in our head all the time. You could be brushing your teeth, sitting at your desk, or just walking down the street, and your brain can throw the most random of tunes at you, and they just won't go away. My name is Bryan, and I'm the world's first brain surgeon slash therapist slash jukebox repairman. In this show, I sit down and talk to a guest, and offer to remove the songs they have in their head that they love, hate, or have no idea why they're there. Aiding me in this mission is a jukebox automated extraction droid that I purchased from Walthamstow Market. Say hello, Jax.
Hello, love.
Warning, this show contains earworms of a highly contagious nature, but if they do get you, we can help.
This is Cerebral Jukebox.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for downloading the episode. Welcome back to Cerebral Jukebox. I am of course your host, Carl. In this episode we've got Tom Sidwell, musician and one of the hosts of the Midlife Punk podcast, where we sit down to talk about a traditional folk song, where we have a bit of a natter about its meaning, its history, and there is a lot of sharp talk, so if you're a Sean Bean fan, this is going to be the episode for you. Just before we get into it, I want to say, spoilers in advance, I do ruin a bit of the last episode of Sharp, if you haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure how that's the case, but just in case, I am pre-warning you. Right, let's get into it. Hello Tom, how are you doing today?
I am good, Carl. It's weird being on the other side of it for a change, but yeah, I'm all right.
So we're pretty much diving straight in because we were chatting anyway before the record had started. I just thought I'd dive in and switch the record on before we started going in too deep off air. But are you all right to just introduce what song you've picked today?
Yeah, I have picked Over the Hills and Far Away, which is a 17th century folk song, and for the ITV drama series Sharp, it was the end credit music, and for that it was arranged and sang by John Tams, who also played Sergeant Hagman in the series as well.
If I should fall to rise no more, as many comrades did before, then ask the fifes and drums to play over the hills and far away.
So we were saying just before we came on air that I was surprised that you didn't pick a punk song, but you, like you said to me, it's maybe a bit too on brand.
Yeah, too on brand, and you know, there's so many. It's like it's my life, you know. And there's just too many. I'd never have been able to pick one. I'd have gone crazy before I managed to just choose one to talk about or have removed from my head or not.
So what is it about Over the Hills and Far Away that made you want to pick it for this?
I love history, keen amateur, not expert, of no qualifications in the field at all, and I love the TV series Sharp. And as I've said, that song's the sort of end credits, and it usually ends on a moment of emotion. And it was, how old would I have been? God knows, late 90s, 12, 13. I used to watch Sharp when they first went out on ITV with my mum. So it's got good memories of that, but it does get stuck in your head, and it's very whistleable, as my wife will attest to.
Yeah, you did say to me just before, so you asked me if I was a whistler. I'm not. I can't whistle. What were you going to ask me after?
I was just going to say, you know, if you're a whistler and you've listened to this a few times, you'll be strutting around Derby tomorrow whistling out Over the Hills and Far Away. But I think we're a dying breed, the whistler.
Yeah, I have been sort of humming it to myself as I've been going around, because there's so, with it being a 17th century one, there's so many versions of it, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's another thing that's quite intriguing, because, you know, people that know me, this will be when I'm reciting or humming or whistling the lyrics to this song, it's the only time you'll ever hear me pledged to obey a monarch in my entire life. It's the whole premise of the song is young, lads going off to get blown to bits for no real reason other than they were sent there by a magistrate or needed the money. It's a real stark contrast, the whole series and this song, about patriotism, duty, and the sort of horrors of it as well, that you'll probably die. Because in the Napoleonic Wars and the sort of preceding wars, these were young lads, and they were, you and I probably wouldn't have been asked to go because I'm mid-30s and we'd have been too old. These were like teenagers getting sent to countries that they'd not even read about in books because they couldn't read, to get blown to bits for the king, which is just weird.
With this version, I mean, 'cause from when you told me which song you wanted to do, I did go and have a look, and I did try and find the version from Sharp, and then I was quite surprised when I remembered how much about Sharp I'd forgotten, because I think we're roughly the same age, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I used to watch it a lot because it was a massive, big budget thing at the time. It was probably more expensive than a lot of television. And I forgot completely that John Tams was actually in it.
Yeah. I think he was one of the he was the musical advisor, I think, because he belts out a few of the old folk songs and war shanties and stuff like that they sang. It's quite interesting, sort of the whole series, and I think, like you say, for its time, it was quite a bold thing to do, because I'm not sure how successful the books were at that time. But they made these 2-hour-long feature-length episodes out of all of the books. And yeah, the whole aesthetic of the show is really good, really interesting. The sort of they take liberties with the historical facts a bit, but the sort of musical aspect and the morale of the soldiers, and these songs that they use to express their distaste for the war, distaste for the enemy, distaste for one another, love for one another. It's all pretty interesting how sort of these songs changed over the years to fit a narrative of a time.
Well, I mean, was the first time you heard this song, was it from the television series, or was it from you'd heard it previously, just from it being a
TV series?
Yeah,
TV series. I think the first time I ever went whoa was when it was the end of Sharp's Eagle. I won't spoiler alert it, but if that's one you want to watch that one. And when that kicks in at the end, it's quite an emotional episode of the show. And and that's when I thought this song's mint.
Was that a style of music that you've been listening to sort of in your own personal listening at that point, or?
No, it was all punk, which is why it's a bit of a contrast. I sometimes find myself listening to it when I'm walking the dog, just as a bit of a change of pace, as it were, and volume.
Yeah, I mean, did it open it up for? Do you listen to more music? I know that this sound actually has probably been incorporated into some punk as time's gone on. Did you find yourself leaning towards that side of things more afterwards, or?
No. Normally, I can't stand folk music. Sorry to any folk fans out there, but it was the association with the sort of historical aspect, and it did make me, in later years, I've googled the origin of the song, how the lyrics have changed from different conflicts, and new verses were created as warfare technology advanced.
I've not heard like a more up to date one, to be honest.
There's Alfie Boe does one,
right.
which is the only one I could find on the streamers. And it sort of loses something when there's a professional opera singer belting it out in that stereotypical opera style.
Yeah, there was one I saw on there. I don't think it was Alfie Boe, but it did credit John Tams as arranging it as well. It was the only one I could find with him on it, but it did seem very strange in comparison with how sort of slickly produced it was.
Yeah, there's some. I think that version I sent you. There's some pretty lo-fi electric drums, I think, that come in.
Yeah.
towards the end in the last verse. But then they layer up all the sort of harmonies and the call and response vocals in that bit. So you can forgive them a bit of, Casio drum kit.
Can't beat a bit of Casio drum kit, absolutely not. I mean, do you, with the more sort of traditional music, the sort of the folk songs and things like that, do you feel that it may be sort of especially with technology kind of not dying out, with technology getting bigger and better and slicker, when things get re-recorded like this, do you feel it almost loses the aesthetic of what was originally there? Or
Yeah, because I think this particular version, it had to go in a 90s TV show, and the intro and stuff, the John Tams version is traditional. It's got a fiddle, and fifes in it and stuff like that. But it does sort of detract from it with the Casio drum kit and the very echoey backing vocals. But you've got to remember it was for a 90s TV show, so they are going to do that. But it's that first couple of verses and a chorus for me that makes your hair stand up on end. It's the simplicity of it, which I guess made it accessible, and because obviously when it was written or got passed down, it couldn't be recorded, so it has to be simple and it has to be accessible and what's the word I'm trying to say? Not replicatable, because that's not a word, but it has to be easily fabricated to be passed around, because that's how songs got passed around then.
Yeah. With we talked about this on an episode before when somebody selected Jurassic Park, the theme from Jurassic Park.
I think I listened to that one. Yeah.
Oh, do you think a song will stick more in the brain if it is attached to a visual medium as well? Like a thing like, do you feel that this song would have stuck more? Wouldn't have stuck as much, sorry, if it wasn't on a very big budget TV show like of Sharp?
I don't think I would have ever heard it,
Yeah.
Because I just don't move in those circles. Like we said, when you're trying to find it, you find all these, military events where somebody's singing it, or it's being performed by the Royal Brass Band of the 98th Grenadiers or something like that, and that's not something I would ever be interested in listening to normally. But yeah, so for me, certainly, I have got Sharp to thank for that, for it coming to me and getting stuck in my head.
Okay. Well, as we said, it does get stuck in your head there. What we do every episode is we do offer the choice to have it removed from your Cerebral Jukebox, or you can keep it for prosperity. Tom, what would you like to do with it?
Is it on the NHS?
I'm sure it must be somewhere.
I'd like you, please, if you can, to remove it, just so that I can stick my Sharp box set on later on and have that wow moment that I had when I was 12 all over again.
Not a problem. We will get Jax to remove that for you.
Removing track. Over the hills and throw away with you, you bastard.
Lovely stuff.
Right then. Tom, thank you very much for coming on. Before we let you go today, is there anything you want to promote there?
Yes, please. I would dearly love people to check out the podcast that I created and host with my friend Niall, aka Nihilism. You've had him on here before, I believe. Yeah. If you're not mad keen on punk and you just like to hear middle-aged guys who have had a bit too much to drink messing about, we do some episodes about films. We've just done one called Punks on Film, where we talk about the terrible film Ordinary World, starring Billy Joe Armstrong off Green Day, and we give that a good ribbon.
Yeah, Niall was telling me about that, yeah. Just in the film, went, oh, which one? He said, oh, that one. It's like, oh, how was it? It was, yeah, it's good.
It's a film, yeah. Hey, Billy Joe Armstrong is giving it a go, and that's all you can ask of him. He's tried his best. This kind of goes back in with John Tam. You've got musicians going on the screen there.
I mean, what would you say is the great? Say I could chop this in before the outro. What would you say is probably the best musician on screen that's jumped into acting you've ever seen?
Oh, that's hard. That's like surprised me that they're actually all right.
Yeah.
Probably the Kemp brothers off Spandau Ballet when they did that craze thing.
Yes, I haven't seen that in years.
Nah, I watched that like late when he was in EastEnders, I think, and I thought, bloody hell, he's actually like, he used to be really good at acting, and he was in a band as well.
Yeah.
Double threat, the old Kemp brothers.
Yeah, it felt like a sort of 3 a.m. casting decision, didn't it? The sort of someone took a drag on a cigarette and just went, just give it the Kemp brothers.
Yeah, we don't know any famous twins apart from them. Yeah, but John Tams is acting in the last episode of Sharpish Sharp's Waterloo.
Yes.
And I don't know why, because his acting's been passable in all the other episodes he's in, but in that one, it's really, jarred. I don't know why.
Well, not to... I suppose the crossover between us and Sharp might not be that massive, but it is his last one, isn't it, that one? I mean, it's everybody's last one, but it's definitely his character's last one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, let's not spoil it, but I don't know. I just thought perhaps they're having contract disputes and we're doing a half-assed job. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe his spin-off fell through.
Hagman on the Road or something. Yeah.
Chronicles of Hagman.
We should pitch that.
Oh, dear. Right, Tom, thank you very much for coming on.
No, mate, thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate it. It's been lovely.
No worries. And so that's where we leave Tom, sitting on his sofa, enjoying his Sharp full complete series box set and enjoying the full 29 hours of Napoleonic action. And yes, I did look into how long the series is. Our next guest is going to be on January the 31st, and it is tattoo artist Lydia Wakefield, and she's going to be sitting down with me and chatting about Purple Rain by Prince. I think it's Lydia's first podcast ever, and she's got this brilliant outgoing personality, and I'm really looking forward to having you hear what she's got to say about that, because it is just a fun episode. So I'm going to play us out today with a bit of the other version of Over the Hills and Far Away that I mentioned during the show. It's by Will Martin, who's a classical crossover artist, and it is arranged by John Tam. Have a listen and see what you think with the more sort of modern, slicker production as opposed to the production that was used back then in the 90s. So, of course, I do need to do my cheesy sign-off. I've had to think about it, and I think I've got one, so come back next time for more Cerebral Jukebox, righting wrongs by removing songs. See you next time.
When duty calls me, I must go to stand and face another foe. But part of me will always stray over the hills and far away.
Thank you for downloading Cerebral Jukebox. Please don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe or a review, be it at
Spotify, Apple, Google,
or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're interested in a bit more, we've got Spotify and YouTube playlists and our socials all over at Linktree, so you just need to go to linktr.ee/Cerebral Jukebox. Do stay tuned to hear about more shows on the We Made This podcast network, but until then, my name's Carl Bryan, this has been Jax.
bye!
And we'll see you next time.
Elsewhere on We Made This. The time is now. A Millennium podcast.
But no, I mean, I will say that Rise of the Machines also kind of argues against
Terminator 2, of course.
Back to where it was.
Like Rise of the Machines, then goes, maybe they're both right, and shrugs its shoulders. It's like, maybe you can prevent Judgment Day, but only for a little while. And it's like, that's not an argument. Pick a side. Pick a lane. You can either change the past or you can't. None of this wishy-washy. You can change it sometimes, but you can't really change it. So it all balances out. Yeah, no, pick a damn side.
Don't say the C word.
On the back of my right arm, I have a tattoo of Phil Collins. It's the front cover of No Jacket Required.
This was the one that I expected you to pick, I'll be honest with you. Because it is my favourite of your tattoos.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tattoo I got as a joke. A lot of my tattoos that I've got, a lot of everything that I do is because it's a joke or if I think something's funny.
We buy records.
Eric Clapton and Van Morrison have released an anti-lockdown song. How do you think about this? Where does this sit on the shitometer?
I think it redefines the shitometer.
Right.
I just, so I think it's raising money for musicians who are affected by the lockdown and the lack of gigs, etc., which is a good thing.
Yep.
But then you see Van Morrison and Eric Clapton, a bad thing. So,
right.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I love Van Morrison's music. I don't particularly like Eric Clapton's music. I quite like the 60s stuff. But they're a couple of whinging old men, aren't they? Old man babies complaining that they can't go and lick whoever they want.
Ooh.
I know, but that's what they're singing about. I think I haven't checked that. I assume that the lyrics are about.
You can take it as read that I haven't heard it.
It's not likely to have a banging donk on it, is it?
It's unlikely to have a banging donk.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.